Well, as much as I love looking at the pictures, especially now, Doug, I think we have to probably start, otherwise we won't have enough time for everything. So I will just introduce the reading. So okay, are you guys all muted? As you should be. I think somebody's muting for me. I'm Jo Pitkin. I graduated in the Kirkland class of 1978, and I thank you all for coming to the second volume of Virtual Verse, a reading of poetry by Kirkland alumni. And I'm hoping that the two virtual events, the one in May and this one, will get you guys all excited about going to the Hill next year, June 10th to the 13th, for the All Kirkland reunion. Although I know some of you are a little far away, so that might be too ambitious a thought, but I think it's this is a nice way to kick off a year of getting ready for that reunion. And again, as I did last month, I want to thank the reunion committee for inviting me to organize a poetry reading, and of course now we've had two, and also thank Gloria Rydell and Sharon Rippey and the Hamilton Alumni Office for so much support in bringing these events to you. The fact that I could bring together two separate groups of accomplished poets from a tiny women's college somewhere in central New York with a short shelf life, to me is a testament of Kirkland's emphasis on writing, independent scholarship, innovation, and the strength of its creative writing program under the direction of Bill Rosenfeld. Bill's totally an inspiration to me. At 94, I just spoke to him last week, by the way, at 94, he's still writing novels and memoirs. And he's also still doling out pretty good advice. Maybe that's just to me, I don't know. Maybe the rest of you who talk to him get that too. I think it's just remarkable that those of us who took creative writing workshops in the 1970s and 1980s are still actually writing, first of all, and not even that, beyond that, producing really fine work. So in our writing, especially with the group of writers today, we've traveled very diverse paths and we've developed distinct styles. We've certainly explored different forms. Yet I think our common bond is that Kirkland helped shape the writers we are today. It's where we began to find our voices, discovered mentors, both live and in print, I should say, and took our first wobbly steps into a literary life. Today, despite the turbulent and challenging times we're facing, let's celebrate that we alumni are still here, sharing our imaginative worlds and our lived experiences through our words. And I'm so happy to start with Nin Andrews. Her poems have appeared in many literary journals and anthologies, including Plowshares, Ani, the Paris Review, and 4 editions of Best American Poetry. Nin is the author of 7 chapbooks and 7 full-length poetry collections, and her next book, The Last Orgasm, will be published by Etruscan Press in October 2020. Nin graduated from Hamilton in 1980 and holds an MFA from Vermont College, and I hope you'll warmly welcome her.
Thanks, Jo. Thanks so much. It's such an honor to be reading in front of all of you and to be invited. So I'm going to start my father with a poem about my father. My father practiced every superstition known to man and a few that others, no one else knew, and apparently he made them up. And there's one superstition that always sticks with me. There were 6 children in our family, and we had this idea that it was always loud, but if it was ever silent in the middle of chaos, that was the moment when the dead traded places with the living. And according to my father, this happens every 20 minutes, and you could time it. You could set your clock by it if you got one of those moments. And as a child, I was always fascinated with that. So if I was at a party or something, I might say, oh, the dead just traded places with the living. And people would look at me very strangely. And someone looked at me one day and they said, what drugs are you on? So this, that's what this first poem is about. So I'm going to start with that and I'll read straight through after that. It's called Like This. When I was a girl, my father said, every 20 minutes we vanish, go silent, join the dead in our dreams. If you could time it and knew when to start the clock, you'd see them too, lingering there between one thought and the next. Some steal a breath of your air and give you a pinch. Others walk right through you on a whim. A sudden chill, a shudder, it's the natural response. Try to stop them if you can. Wait just a second. Lost my place, sorry. Others walk, try to stop them if you can, repress or pretend. Say no one's here. You're all alone in the evening air. It makes no difference to them. They know where they've been and how much they like it, touching you like this, traveling through you again and again. Nonsense. I hope you don't believe all that nonsense your father tells you, my mother said. He's always making up tales about ghosts and magic and his sixth sense, how he had a premonition before his brother Billy passed on. But you know, he never tells the same story the same way twice. I tried to correct him. Reginald, I say, that never happened. Kate, he answers back, this is my story. Have another drink and listen to it. Sometimes he says, behind every tale, there's another tale. That's the one he wants to tell. I think he makes stuff up. He thinks he can invent another world, one he might want to live in. I ask, what if everyone did that? He says most folks do. Historians, palm readers, lawyers, weathermen. Politicians do it all the time. That's why we elect them. The fight. It happened the morning my father reached for his shaving cream and knocked over my mother's $105 an ounce Christian Dior Diorissimo perfume. Instead of apologizing, my father screamed a stream of profanity so long and loud, even the 3 family hounds and 4 stray cats would not re-enter the house for a week. That day, my father told everyone, including the plumber and the druggist, that he couldn't comprehend how a sane soul could live with a woman whose bathroom is nothing but a maze of perfumes, powders, lotions, elixirs, pills, douches, palliatives, and God only knows what all else. And he kept right on talking because it soon became clear that even after frequent laundering and dry cleanings, his favorite suit would forever retain the disturbingly floral scent he associated with both my mother and funeral parlors. My mother had an instinct for retaliation. She began to inquire of guests at cocktail parties just why it is a man can't learn to control his aim. After 21 years of marriage, not a morning has passed, she explained, when she has not had to Lysol and wipe up at least one splash from the rim of her toilet bowl or floor. Long ago, she had to dispose of her lavender-furry toilet covers and bath rugs. Surely, they are unsanitary in any bathroom shared by the male species. She even began to wonder why some sort of disposable funnel had not been invented by Procter & Gamble or Johnson & Johnson, which could be attached to a penis, perhaps with a rubber band or Velcro, and made to conduct the flow neatly into a toilet bowl without mishap. Of course, she reasoned, men run the business world, and while they have no problem inventing any number of products to inhibit female odors and comfort, it would never occur to them to improve their own standards of hygiene, now would it? My mother even went so far as to design a hose-like mechanism using the tubing from her defunct bonnet hairdryer for my father to test drive. But when he refused, she asked him to use the hall bathroom and placed a sign on the door, women only. In a house of many daughters, the message was clear. My father was not welcome. Thank you. Next one. I can't.
No more?
No more. No, that's it. That's 3.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, I appreciate that you kept that short. Thank you.
I thought you said 3.
I was so entranced. I was waiting for the next one. I'll introduce the next reader. That's going to be Nina Bogin. Her fourth book of poems is Thousandfold, published by Kirkland in the UK in 2019. Her translation of The Illiterate by the Hungarian-Swiss writer Agota Christoph appeared in 2014 from CB Editions, also in the UK. Nina, who matriculated in the class of 1974 and graduated from NYU, has lived in France for over 40 years. Welcome to Nina. Where is she? There she is.
Okay, hello everybody, and I'm very honored to be here since I'm not a bona fide Kirkland graduate, but anyway, I'm really happy to join in this really pleasant evening. So I'm going to read 4 poems, and the first one is called Halloween, and it's written for my grandchildren. Halloween. Little girl lavender, little boy blue, here's a pumpkin split in 2. On each side, half a grin, with some teeth out and some teeth in. A triangle nose and 2 wide eyes that wink at you, that wink at you. Here are 2 candles for you to light, one for each half of a Halloween night. When long-toothed shadows flickers high and burn down low in pumpkins that keep watch until morning comes to windowsills. We can't stick the 2 halves back together, can't fix the marriage pact when it goes against the grain. What once was can't be again. A lesson it takes a lifetime to learn. Warm beneath your eiderdowns, you'll sleep through the night of Halloween, in this house or the other, with your father or mother, and a harvest moon, only one, over the park, over the patio. Be at peace and know that a parent's love cannot be halved, but rather doubled, multiplied. So unwavering are the ties of the heart. As October steals into November, here are words for you to remember. Little boy blue, little girl lavender. And the next poem is called Spice Cupboard, which is a kind of an autobiography. Spice Cupboard. Juniper and clove, thyme and tarragon. Who can I depend upon? Star anise and linden flower. I went away and even further. I broke the hearts of my father and mother. Rosemary and marjoram, I married. We had a son who stayed in the womb, who wasn't born. Sorrow of lemon balm, solace of hypericum. Lavender and coriander, we had a daughter and another daughter. Raspberry leaf, chamomile, and cinnamon. My first daughter has a daughter and a son. Cardamom and ginger root, cumin and turmeric. This is my second daughter's music. Poppy seed and elderflower. I'm not yet old, but getting older. Ginkgo, saffron, and dill will not cure my husband's ills. Marigold and rue, hyssop and shepherd's wort, all I haven't learnt. Bay leaf, sage, and caraway, which confers wisdom, which longevity? Nasturtium and rose, starflower and clover, flowers to think things over. The next poem is called Swatch. A man's watch with a thick black watch band. Maybe I'll start over. A man's watch with a thick black watch band. It's a keepsake now, half forgotten. Today, belatedly, I changed the hour to daylight saving. Time goes backwards as well as forward. A year ago, you laughed at our jokes, sang your favorite songs. Your dementia waned. Everything was clear and white, the hospital room in August light, the air on our skin. I drove back and forth. My time was fastened to yours, like a watch to a wrist that 1 year later, like a stopwatch set in motion, starts the countdown again. And that was written a year ago. And the last poem is called Seasonal. I leave a spider in the window corner to catch mosquitoes while I sleep. Skirt a ring of daisies when I mow the lawn. I put out seeds and breadcrumbs for the birds to feast on. Stock beechwood in the fall to burn through the winter. I gauge the thickness of clouds and the likelihood of storms. Track the quarter moons waxing and waning. I cease to pray for the dead. I light candles for the living. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. It's so funny. I'm glad after all these years we can see what each other looks like. The next reader is Doris Low, originally of the class of 1977. She graduated in my year in 78, and she's now known as Doris K’78. She and her husband live in Baltimore, Maryland, where she retired from the practice of law around 10 years ago, and also part-time in Park City, Utah, where they are avid skiers. Her interest in poetry dates from the days at Kirkland, but it was only after retirement that she started to try her own hand at writing it. She recently published poems in Mom Egg Review and Xavier Press Review. And I'm happy to, I can't see Dar, but I know she's in here somewhere. Okay, we'll find you. You know what? We have to unmute Dar. Emily, are you?
Yeah, I'm working on it. For some reason, the button's not clicking. Maybe Sharon, are you able to unmute her, or we'll let her unmute herself, perhaps?
Did I unmute?
Oh, there you are. Yes, great. Sorry. So sorry.
Hi, everybody. Well, it's really nice to be here and to read. I feel like my poems are really short. So I'm going to read 4, but they'll go quick. Okay, I'm seeing okay. The first one is called The Cuttlefish. Scuttling in the dark, alone at the bottom of the sea, her flesh a mucous membrane, her soul a bit of shell, hard on the inside. She is good at calibration, absorbs and rises the language of vibration, knows just to shift her flesh so others see the blues and greens she wants them to. Long, invisible, and blind. The second poem, my son actually likes, and that's why I decided to read it. And it's inspired by his daughter, my granddaughter. It's called Noise, and it's for Hannah. The electric toothbrush buzzes, the coffee maker grinds, Matilda meows for breakfast, rain keeps slamming down. The screen door pops then whinnies, whooshing whirs the trees, bad cat scratches carpet, wind chimes a courtyard breeze. Church bells toll the hours, lawn mowers buzz a saw. Papa's ears are ringing, you can't hear that sound at all. The crickets in the bushes chirp a steady unending stream, but from him who is the closest, you hear the listening in between. The next one is written during these COVID days where I don't know about you guys, but COVID is about the only thing I can write about, or the lack of anything happening in my life is all I can write about. It's called No Mind. All hunkered in a paucity of what to do each day, when to rise, eat a pear, perhaps an avocado, a moon slice of pink lady apple, a date. No reason I can think of to call you or anyone. No news to share or to seek. The distance between us blank as a narrow slip of sand after the wave has withdrawn, returned to the overwhelm of ocean. And even these words arrive with a shell clapped over the ear, all sense muffled by blood, internal wash of a solitary body, no mind. And then the last poem, which actually appeared in a publication, a Momeg Review publication with two other Kirkland alums, Liz Horowitz, who actually brought me to the attention of Jo Pitkin. And I think it's rather special that we are all in there. And also I wouldn't have been here today if it wasn't for that, because I have not been a writer and don't have a long history of publishing, but that particular issue brought us all together, so I'm very grateful. And the poem is called Hope of a River, and it's for my mother, Ruth. Tell my story, she would say, though her lips were parched and sealed. Tell it, she would say, as if it were a blinking star above our tilted necks. My mother's tongue was taken from her. Guttural Deutsch stoppered her throat. Terrible seed caught in the craw of a sparrow. She wore eyes the troubled green of troubled seas. Feared beginnings always start too late. Spoke a patter of staccato, no flow, just little pits of fits and starts. In my dreams, my mother walks in fields. She is a blade of green in a slim of dry grass. I wait for her to tell me all she never could remember. I wake in hope of a river. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. It's good to hear you read that poem from the magazine too. Thank you. I just lost my voice. What's happening? So the last, well, not the last reader, but next is Jane Summer, who's a Kirkland graduate from the class of 1976. She was working at a dance school prior to COVID-19, and before that, she had a career as a creative arts specialist in the geriatric community. And before that, she spent 2 decades in publishing, spending some of that time in Sydney, Australia, with, much to her surprise, Murdoch magazines. She is the author of the novel The Silk Road and the hybrid collection Erebus, and she's the editor of Not the Only One. Where are you, Jane? I know you're here. Jane,
I'm here. Do you see me?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
We can see and hear you.
Okay. Yes, I work in a dance school. Do you have an echo?
A little bit. Maybe we have you on too. Let me try to mute one of them and we'll try again.
Yeah, is this
Quick
better?
test. Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I work in a dance school, and this first poem I wrote after one of our faculty was telling the students a story, a very colorful story about her dancing with Nureyev. And one of the kids said, "Who's Nureyev?" So I wrote this piece called Nureyev Who? The horror isn't in the knees. It isn't the confrontation at reunions with our witchy faces, reminding me we once looked forward. The horror isn't in weighing whether to march. We always knew that might kill us. The horror isn't in the gadgetry learning curve or that perfect word not drifted into thin air, but gone darkly down with the putrefied fruit and the fish bones. The horror isn't this widowhood that eases with time the way being buried alive eases with time. I am no better now, worse even. The horror is the look given by those who have no idea what I'm talking about, because I have lived long enough to remember. I'll read just a little snippet from my book, Erebus, which is a documentary poem about corporate responsibility and friendship. The background to it is in 1979, a sightseeing flight over Antarctica crashed. And there were a lot of reasons for the crash, mostly because of mistakes made by the airline. And a friend of mine was on that flight. Her name was Kay. Our flight time today. Don't expect an elegy. I'm unofficial, uninvited, no spouse, certainly not family, if family means a certain beauty, a turned foot. I've never wept at the crash site nor signed the Book of Mourning. It wasn't me kneeling before the frozen steel cross, contemporary Corus sculpture, not me in prayer at the stained glass memorials to well-known, unknown passengers. I'm American. And Erebus anniversaries, I should say this, it was the Air New Zealand had mostly passengers from New Zealand in it. I'm American, and Erebus anniversaries, 1 year, 10, 30, have passed by where I live with less notice than we give the Queen's birthday. What a strange insult, like the 4th of July in Auckland, without so much as a fizzle or spark. My birthday's gone unnoticed more than once in foreign places. Who's responsible and who's to blame? A Yankee, I've been so out of it for so many years. I'm not even sure if I lost Kay in that crash or she lost me. What I've come to say is all that's left is her absence. And it has been with me like furniture in the dark you're bound one night to step into. Don't expect an elegy, raising the dead, praising the dead. Despite our best intentions, we forget the dead. Do they forget us? Thanks.
Thank you, Jane. It's so good to see you yet again. And I always remember how much fun we had at AWP, but we'll talk another time.
That was a blast, yeah.
Okay, it's weird, but I guess I'm introducing myself. I'll try. As I said, I graduated in the last class at Kirkland in 1978, and I earned an MFA in poetry from the Writers' Workshop at the University of Iowa. I'm just wondering why, okay, we're seeing you, but wonder why it didn't switch over. Okay, there we go. I am the author of a chapbook and 4 full-length collections of poetry, and I edited Lost Orchard Prose and Poetry from the Kirkland College community. I saw a question in the chat questions about whether there'd be another publication. We hope so, but not from me. I think that was a real labor of love. I'm so happy I met so many people through that. Anyway, I work as a freelance educational writer. I'm one of those people that does Common Core. I admit it. I do all standardized tests. I've just totally lapsed Kirkland student, I guess. But I create instructional materials for K through 12 students. And right now I'm also a teaching artist with the Poetry Barn, which is a virtual experience, except that there really is a barn in the Catskills, and that's where all of some of the activities take place. So I'm going to start with a poem that when we heard Liz Horowitz last month read her great poem, I love it, in the apple orchard, it reminded me a lot of what fierce students we were, what fierce writers, what fierce thinkers we were and scholars, and we really dived into our work so intensely. And I think that's part of maybe what the experience was for some people, that we got the encouragement to write. And certainly in the 70s and 80s, that wasn't really fun to be a woman writer. But I think that Liz's poem reminded me just of this poem, and I'm going to read it, and I hope, Nina, you'll forgive my French pronunciations of some of the words. This is actually true. I really did this exercise. It's such a Kirkland thing. Reading Baudelaire in my backyard. Between first and second years at Kirkland, I assigned myself a tache. Read Rimbaud, Baudelaire, Mallarmé, Lautréamont, Apollinaire, en français. The woven nylon of a cheap chaise lounge marked the backs of my thighs. Sipping a can of warm Sprite, I set my pink English-French dictionnaire on the clipped herbe verte. My suburb translated itself in July's white soleil, while inside the borders of our house, my father, the fou, wrestled his moods. So that was just one of those memories I had that I couldn't believe as a young writer. Someone must have mentioned these French writers to me, and I was so excited. I didn't know who they were, but I tried to read them in French, and I certainly couldn't do that today. I thought of reading this poem because, well, I have a new book coming out. It was scheduled to be out in March. Now it's going to be delayed because of coronavirus. And the whole book is seeing my village where I live through the lens of the economy and the Great Recession and financial strife. And I think that it's going to be topical again, because that's one of our 3 pandemics we've got right now, is another downturn. So the book is called Village Recession, and this is a poem that I wrote about an experience I had right after leaving graduate school, or a couple of years after graduate school. I had moved to Boston. And this is called Village 80 Cents. In 1981, my colleague Beth and I left our fluorescent lit cubicles, rode the elevator 28 floors down to the lobby of 1 Beacon Street, and took our 1-hour lunch break at an Equal Rights Amendment rally in the amphitheater in City Hall Plaza. Standing on stone steps, women waved coin-shaped signs, 59 cents. Young and ambitious, we felt lucky to have landed editorial jobs at a renowned publishing house, so rushed back to our small desks and our by-the-book boss, Mr. Dollar, without losing a single minute of work time worth $7.25 an hour. After having carefully blended in like a pair of Arctic foxes swallowed by snow in summer, swallowed by snow in winter or brown tundra in summer, our brief foray into daylight as off-the-clock lunchtime activists was bugled in the local news. We'd been exposed. A photo of us made the Globe. Today, I work in my own business using skills I learned at 25. Today, offices offer standing desks, LED lights, ergonomic chairs. Today, inter-office memos, whiteout, electric typewriters, liquid lunch, 100% health benefits, gone. The ERA has been dead 40 years. Our pay gaps shrunk to 80 cents. I mean, that seems so naive and innocent, but I was terrified that I was going to get fired by my very conservative, real-named boss. We called him Dollar Bill, but Bill Dollar, he was a nice boss, but I didn't think he would like it if we were out there protesting for equal pay. And we're still doing it today. And the last 2 poems are a little bit more about the kindness of people during stressful times, like maybe what we're going through now, and also about the resilience of women. And this one is Village Bag of Babkas. After giving up treats and bought coffee late in the day, nearly at closing, I stop out of habit at the main course takeout, where Gina offers me a bag of babkas. They'll just be thrown away when we clean up. We can't sell the day olds. I don't want them. I take home a bulging plastic bag closed with a red twist tie, slice the 6 breads in halves, freeze fresh fat spoils veined like agates with chocolate and raisins. The powdered sugar dusted on top won't last through the night. Still, I thaw 1/2 at a time, warm it in the microwave, peel its flaky layers, swallow the molten bites I can't afford, sticky savor. Twisted cakes unraveling spiral by spiral will last for weeks. Cheered all day by the promise of rough crumbs on my tongue's 2,000 taste buds, by cinnamony coils of swirled dough, by something kind and unplanned, I let go for a while. In a single see-through sack of discards, what slow sweetness is shared and held, such rich rising, leavening, rising again. I always have to tell when I read that, these were not full-sized babkas. These were little mini babkas because it sounds like I had a freezer full. They were very tiny, but it was such a sweet idea that that happened. I later found out that that's a trick. People might know this, and I didn't know it. Go late before the place is closing, and you don't know what they're giving away. So. Before I read the last poem, I just wanted to thank everyone for coming, and also to remind people that although we've had these 2 virtual events, we can have more. I'm kind of thinking that I focused on poetry because that's what I studied at Kirkland, but I know there are many nonfiction writers out there and fiction writers who would probably love to be able to share their work. Same thing with visual artists. There were so many talented people I was so lucky to know at college and beyond. And I just want to remind everyone to buy books. I have books. I have Nina's book, not the most recent one yet, Nina, Jane's book, Nin's book here. Just remember that the Hamilton bookstore probably has them. So I hope that you'll support your fellow alumni by buying their books. And I just enjoy reading them all so much. Anyway, that's my pitch. And here's the last poem. And this was the one that, as Dar mentioned, I wouldn't have known that it was her, but now I do. The 3 of us, Liz, Dar, and I, being in Mom Egg Review, I thought I'd finish with the poem that's in that journal. This comes out of a conversation I had with my mom, and I'm fortunate to still have her to be able to talk to. She and my dad were both survivors of the Great Depression, so I thought I could get a little bit of help with the Great Recession as I was going through it from her. And I asked her what she remembered, and this was one of her memories. This is Village Cinnamon Rice. In the 8th grade, my mother's mother had to quit school to work at a milliner's after her immigrant father, Auguste, died. Later, she fed her own family plain fare, plundered her pantry in the Depression, planted a victory garden during the war. Swapped this for that, meated, stretched with vegetables or a generous sprinkling of bitter brown bark to fill up the belly. Season, simmer, scramble, slather, sear. Like all our strong women, she dug in deep to nourish, garnish, share, sustain. With rations, she devised a filling meal, boiled white rice, sweetened to disguise the dull flavor of a meager dish served for supper every Saturday. On a gold-trimmed china dinner plate, my mother savored sticky heaps of cinnamon rice, relished love's unmistakable flavor, its volume, shape, breadth, depth, weight. Well, thank you so much. So I'm not sure, I guess, Emily, are you thinking you want to try to get some of these questions?
Yeah, we had a few in the chat that I thought we could go back to. We had 2 questions, I believe, for Nina. I think those were both from Liz. Did you want to? Let me unmute. I'm sorry. There we go.
Yes, I saw Liz's questions. I think one was, were the poems that I read in a book. And the first, well, I published a book a year ago, or at the beginning of, 2019, which is called Thousandfold. And it's published by Kirkland in the UK and available by all the means existing at the moment. And there are the other books as well. And the other question I think I saw was, why did I leave Kirkland? Oh, do I have to answer that question? No. I left Kirkland because I felt I needed to be in a city. And so I didn't transfer to NYU because I liked it better. It was just, to get my degree. And I lived in New York, and then I decided I liked a French city better. So I moved to Paris, and ultimately to not a city at all for very, very long. But in any case, yeah, I didn't get out of Kirkland what many of you people did, and I think it was just maybe the right place at the wrong time for me. But I had good experiences there, and had some wonderful teachers like Douglas Raybeck, who popped in earlier, and many others, of course, Bill Rosenfeld and Denise Levertov, and some nice people I remember, like Gwen. So, yeah.
And Joe just mentioned, did Kirkland influence your writing in any way?
I would say no, but Kirkland corresponded to something that was important to me, which was nature. And it has always been, for a long time anyway, almost as important as anything else. I lived in the countryside here in France for almost the whole time I've been in France, and I lived in Paris for 6 years, and then my husband and I moved to the country, although we were near a city. I mean, we weren't back to the earth, and we weren't farmers, and I never could have chickens because there were always too many foxes, so that was a disappointment. But and now I'm living in a small city. But Kirkland, I would say no, because I mean, I would say Denise Levertov had an undeniable influence on me, especially in the sense that she felt I was a poet. And in fact, I wasn't even really writing poetry at that time, but we corresponded for some time afterwards, a little bit on and off, and she was very supportive. So but I think that, to be honest, at that time, and absolutely mistakenly, I was allergic to being influenced by anything except what I didn't realize influenced me. But I sort of had this idea of kind of chopping down the tree all by myself. So I think it was a mistaken idea, because later on in life, I met other poets, for instance, and writers who, had fully accepted the riches offered to them by their mentors, their teachers, and so on. But no, I was going to, invent the alphabet by myself. And didn't get too far, but, I'm still working at it.
Thank you.
I was just going to make an observation too. I mean, with this group with all the writers who agreed to read in this Zoom thing, we may have all studied at different times, but I mean, what I find is how wildly different everybody is in their writing. And I don't know if that's sort of what you said just now, Nina, that everybody was chopping their own trees. I don't know. But I think that, I think maybe that was one thing we were encouraged not to sound the same. I mean, not to be, there's a horrible saying about people who went to the Iowa workshop, that there's the Iowa poem, but I don't think I've ever heard anyone say there's the Kirkland poem. I think we are pretty different, and that might be some credit to not being pigeonholed maybe, or, Nin writes, I think 99.9% prose poems, and then Jane did this fabulous hybrid collection. So I think we all have come at our writing lives with that kind of Kirkland spirit, maybe. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Good.
I'm trying to see what else. Any other good questions, Emily?
There was one conversation that Claire brought up about Tess Gallagher, which I thought, I didn't know if you all wanted to chat about that. A few people had some questions about where she is now.
Yeah, I think Liz was answering pretty I don't know, Liz,
Okay.
did you know that Josie, her partner, has passed away? Might not know that. Yeah, I've stayed in
No, I
touch
didn't
with
know.
more or less with the mentors that I had, the teacher mentors that I had from Kirkland. Tess and I email occasionally, and she splits her time between her home in Ireland, and she's still in the state of Washington. I have to say I haven't written to her too recently, but I have seen her over the years.
Oh, next time you email her, let her know that Claire Gibbons
Claire says, "Hey,
was,
okay, I will."
yeah, yeah, we
I-
were very good friends. And I was just in Ireland last fall. What, do you know where she is in Ireland? Or
I'd have to look up the. You know what? I don't right now. I can't think of the town she's in. It's a little village somewhere.
yeah, because I visited relatives over there. Yeah.
I think it's a total coincidence, but she has written a lovely sort of testimonial for Salmon Poetry, which is in Ireland. And it just, I'm sure it's nothing to do with me, but I do get, that's where my books are published. So
Oh,
I think it's almost very weird to I see this lovely statement from Tess and I'm like, that is too weird. I met her in 1976. Who's going to believe that, you know?
yeah.
I,
Joe, do you remember standing in line with me at graduation? I was wondering if you did.
I don't think I remember graduation that vividly right now. No, but I remember you encouraging me to do Lost Orchard at a reunion, so I do remember that. That's a little more recently.
No, but I was the one I think I was standing in front of you with my daughter.
I guess I'd have to go back to the photos, wouldn't I?
Yeah.
I don't remember. That day is a blur to me right now, but
I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that day. Never. Yes. That was an amazing feat for me to have.
I remember, and I remember that was that great program that Kirkland had. The Kirkland All Women, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They separated all of us though. That was the disturbing part. And they still do that in life, you know, separation by age and all that kind of gets to me.
You know, this is sort of a random thought, but I was also thinking, funny, I can remember some things. I was thinking the other day, I had a class freshman year, first semester with Chester Sadoway. I don't know if anyone remembers him. He taught colonial American literature. And I always remember it was a pretty weird course. The writers were so odd and strange, but it was the first time I heard that Anne Bradstreet and Phyllis Wheatley were both two of the three, I think, first published American poets. And so many people don't know that little fact. I mean, Donna probably knows it because Anne Bradstreet and Salem are pretty tied. But I just remember being so shocked. And that was the beginning of my eyes were just opened. Every class, I had no idea that women wrote poetry and had it published in the 1600s. But every course, I learned something that was useful to me in a way of, you know, trying to create a path, as Nina said, chopping down my own tree also. So.
Right. Well, now they're even discovering that there's older one, even more going back further. There's more that we haven't heard of, like some of the people that were slaves were writing.
That's true.
You know,
also.
and not known. Yeah, and not known. Yeah.
There's all kinds of scholarship still being done, right? I was surprised. The things that I thought I knew from when we were in college, a lot.
Oh my gosh.
Information.
Right. Yes.
But again, it's so heartening. I mean, someone mentioned Hamilton being so different today, but I still find it heartening that there's so many young women who are writing and, of course, editing the literary magazine, you know, things that were seemingly so unique that when we were there, I was the first editor of a literary magazine on the Hill. And I just thought, I couldn't believe that no other women had had that job before me, but I was, at the end of Kirkland. So I just think things have changed, and I sometimes think we need to tell them how much.
Oh,
So
yeah.
remember, so
Yeah.
they keep that in mind. I mean, I thought about how this reading was happening during Pride Month, and I thought even that, there's things that we have lived through in our time on the planet that are pretty profoundly different from what we started out knowing. So.
Oh, definitely.
I
Yes.
see Jane saying bye. Bye, Jane. Uh-oh.
Mm.
Anybody
So-
else have any thoughts? Well, we still have a minute or two.
Will we have another literary opportunity in a magazine before the next reunion?
I really, I'm going to defer to Isabel, who is still on. Isabel, you want to answer that if you can? I think you have to unmute. Yeah.
I'm still trying to, I actually just contacted someone else at SUNY Press. The person who I had been in touch with is on leave till September, which I just found out. So I just contacted someone else, and this is a collection of nonfiction by Kirkland writers. So we gathered it together about 4 years ago, and things intervened, and now we're trying to get it published. So we'll see. We'll see. I'll let
Okay.
everybody know.
Good, great.
But Claire, I was thinking it really was a lot of work, and I could only have thought of doing it when it was during the recession, when my life was crumbling. I had no work. You thought that students needed textbooks forever. I don't know, but I think that was a lucky hiatus for me because I got other stuff done. But we'll see. I think
let
it's.
me know if you need any help with it.
I will. I will.
Okay.
But I think, yes. Hi.
Hi. This is so wonderful. Thank you so much for putting this together. I wanted to go back for a second to how much Hamilton has changed and just mention one thing. And I know Sharon, I hope Sharon's still on the line.
Yes.
I got this message today that heartened me so much. So the new president of the Hamilton and Kirkland Alumni Association is a woman named Josie Collier, and she is a Black woman. And I think that's pretty cool. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Change has occurred.
Change has occurred. There's more that needs to happen, but it's happening. So
Right.
moving in the right direction.
Excellent.
Okay, I'm trying to read. I can't read and talk at the same time clearly. Now, Liz, wait a minute. Liz Horowitz, you did too have consistent mentors. You and I had the same ones.
Yeah, I didn't keep in touch with them consistently.
No, I mean, you
Yeah.
know, but I think that again, a lot of us were lucky enough to be there when Tess Gallagher and Michael Burkhardt were hired by Bill Rosenfeld. That was a pretty phenomenal time because they neither had a book published, and I just think that was remarkable to know them at an early time in their careers. And even more than that, the people that they brought for us to listen to. I wish I could go back and see all the names of the writers that came to the campus, but they had some pretty powerful friends, and it was just interesting. You know, we were privileged, I think, to have that. I always remember I was the second youngest person in my Iowa class, which should have been intimidating, but it was not, because Kirkland gave me such a strong foundation. I was so prepared, and I had these people that would say to me, "You're so lucky you had all these workshops and teachers," and these were people who went to schools like Princeton and Temple, big schools, that I couldn't believe that they hadn't had the same opportunities. Now, I don't know how that stacks up now, because Hamilton, of course, continued the strong creative writing, but so a lot of other schools picked up on that. And now there's hundreds of these programs, but I think we were lucky. We had a unique advantage. I think we had some really excellent teachers, and the people that visited were not shabby either. So I think that helped me. I know that. I'm just trying to read anything else. Okay, let's see. I know, did anybody else, any of the other writers who read want to say anything about how Kirkland or college maybe helped them along? Nin, Nin, you have plenty of stories. You have a whole different mentorship thing.
Did anyone ever know that Bill Rosenfeld's wife taught creative writing too? She taught over at Utica College. I took a course from her after graduation. She was really good.
Sure. I think Irma's still writing as well. I don't know where I think she's writing a historical novel, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Nancy? You would know. I think so.
Yeah, she just finished a 400-page historical novel with a woman heroine.
Oh, wow.
So what's really cute is she and Bill have a tiny, tiny office, and their backs are to each other, and their computers are in front of them, and they're both writing in their 90s. It's extraordinary.
Amazing. What's the name of her novel?
It's not published yet, and I am not sure it even has a title yet. She just said that she had finished like the draft of it. And Bill was working on a novel as well. So they're incredibly actively, mentally engaged in their work.
That's amazing.
And Bill does send his love. I mean, he wrote me a cute email after the first reading. I think Zoom is too much for them, but he just said, "Kirkland lives." And I thought that was so cute. But yes, they seem to have survived pretty okay with the coronavirus. I was a little worried about that, but they say they can't have visitors where they are. They just haven't seen their kids. So I think.
Can I say one more thing about Bill? He remembers all of you. I mean, when I was talking to him, he was just saying, how's this person and how's that person? Are they still writing? And I was astonished. The only thing he would mix up, he goes, oh, I got the class mixed up. Were they 73 or 75? I mean, he would be upset with himself that he couldn't remember their class, but it was amazing to me how much all of you meant to him that had him as a professor.
I went to Bruce Muirhead's retirement online on Zoom.
Me too. That was great. I'm still waiting. Nin, you're trying to get off the hook. I see you in the.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't think. Honestly, I transferred from Bryn Mawr to Hamilton, and I had a lot of things to sort out, and I knew I wasn't really there yet. So, all these people helped me a great deal, but most of my, and I relied on their advice ex post facto, but I don't think I wrote particularly well. I think I learned a lot and got started there, but I can't say, oh yeah, I was this rising star. I was just, growing up. I had a lot of, I had a pretty severe nervous breakdown at Bryn Mawr, and my mother was furious. She has a Bryn Mawr alma mater. She's absolutely livid that I didn't go back, and I applied in June to Hamilton, Kirkland. They were falling apart. I didn't know where they were. I didn't know what they were. I just wanted an option, and I was shocked when I got in, and my parents were livid. Like, how dare I? And it was this random thing. And, I arrived, and honestly, I went into the dean's office and I said, thinking about this now, I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling because I know Hamilton has had trouble with suicide and so forth, that history. And I went into the dean's office and I said, I have this history and I don't want it to repeat. And I want you to know that any faculty member who sees it they are allowed to intervene and I want to check in with you regularly. And I was just like totally upfront. And as a result of that, certain faculty members were very aware of it and they treated me like a little princess. It was wonderful. So for me to really talk about Hamilton, I have to put it in that context. It was, and Kirkland. I mean, and honestly, I should say Kirkland because it was really what I thrived on was the variety of women. I mean, Bryn Mawr was very, very stringent and structured, probably a little closer to what Hamilton was. I don't know exactly what it is now. And Kirkland was everything and everyone, and I could find footing and friends there. And like I said, the faculty took really good care of me. And I'm very grateful for that. But in terms of, I always knew I wanted to write. I had the opportunity to write there, and I had a lot of work to do before I actually could find my voice. So that's why I wasn't really answering your question. I'm like, oh.
No, but I've been aware because I took some of the same workshops you did, and that was another thing where I started writing prose poems was at Kirkland. And I know that you've perfected that, you've mastered that to a fine degree, but I always think, like, I don't think that was a common thing being taught or that people were exposed to then. I don't know, I could be wrong, but I just am basing this on some of my memories of going to grad school. And I felt like, what do you mean you've never heard of a prose poem? Or how about a persona poem? It seems so common to me. I felt like I was way ahead of a lot of my classmates at Iowa, I'm sorry to say. Although I was very shy and quiet and intimidated, but I think we had a pretty good background and a lot of interesting stuff.
Right.
I'm going to have to jump, but I just want to mention that I learned nothing about writing at Kirkland for my writing career, which is genre fiction. And that's what I'm going to talk about in July 13th, is how the sausage is made, the stuff you didn't learn in college about genre fiction. And I hope you will enjoy that. It's more of I will be doing some reading, but it's a little bit more of how stories are constructed that are incredibly familiar and yet always different.
That'll be cool.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Great seeing all you guys, and I have to leave. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, I know we could keep everybody on forever. This is actually a little later than we should be on, but I just was hoping to have enough time if people had any questions. And someone had asked about getting together a list of publications, and that's a great idea, and I will figure that out. I probably have a list somewhere that I can easily pull together from all of your bios, and that's a great idea. I didn't think of that I wasn't really thinking of that for these readings, that we should be making sure people know where they can get our books and what they're called or whatever. But I think it was just great to see you all. And again, I'm just passing the baton off. I mean, Susan's got her thing coming, but there's other opportunities, right, to do some Zoom events. So I hope people will think about something that they want to present in the next year. And I'll see you again soon, I hope. I hope everybody's well. Everybody looks well. So
yes.
Thank you, Jo.
Thanks,
Thank you, Jo.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Jo.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
It was great to hear
Bye.
you guys. You.
Okay, bye-bye.
Nancy.
Bye, Joe.
Super.
Won't leave.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
You're so funny. I can't interrupt.
I'm only good at interrupting people I know, Sharon.
That's all right. I can too. Josie's going to be on Friday.
Good. I wanted to say that, but then I couldn't interrupt. I have to say, her saying that and seeing everybody's faces was worth the pain of putting up with her. So
I know. I just got a text from Penny McGuire saying,
Just in case you need counseling under Josie's gentle baton, please know I'm here for you.
I was wondering, should we make Patty the small region's vice chair?
Yes.
Okay. Because I was going to do Katie Lamont and Patty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he said, he doesn't want to just be like a paperweight. He really wants something to do. And that would be a good thing for him to do.
Okay. And I think, so Dave is back and forth. And I was wondering, do you think Michael could stay on for 2 more years for LA?
As long as Amy Greenan doesn't know.
Yeah, nobody will tell her. I basically probably have to keep it from Tucker and Tara too. So to like slide it in there somehow.
I know. Wait, did you see? Wait, stop recording.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Do you have it or do I?
Do you want to stop recording?